So I'm going to start with a poem that I wrote this morning. I wrote it as I was sitting in the bed, recovering from something that got me that wasn't COVID, that opened me up to a lot of thinking, a lot of contemplation. And I had been trying to write about trust for the past couple months. And my aim with what I was trying to write was to invite people into the possibility of trusting more. And try as I might, I could not get the words to come through in a way that conveyed the fullness of what I was trying to say. And, I know words roll like that, so it wasn't like I was surprised, but because of the profundity of this sense of a urgent need for us to develop our capacity for trusting, kind of has been welling up inside of me. I was hoping that I would be able to talk about trust and maybe talk about some of the reasons why we find it so hard to trust. And that if I could give words to it, maybe some people would be like, you know what? I should trust more. But the thing is, trust by its very nature does not offer guarantees. Because if there was a guarantee, you wouldn't need to trust. And what I've realized, or at least temporarily accepted, most humans that I've met in my 11,427 years want a guarantee. And we trick ourselves into believing that we trust, which I don't know why we do it, but we trick ourselves into believing that we trust, simply because the guarantee that we hope for might not be on the horizon. Say, for example, heaven. Like, I wonder how many people would have faith in God if there was no reward for it. If it was just like, have faith in God because, hey, God. And then somebody said, well, what do you get out of it? Don't worry about it. What's going to happen to me if I do all these things like loving our neighbors as ourselves and all these other liberal talking points you're trying to get me to do there, Jesus? What do I get out of it? Don't worry about it. You'll find out. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Maybe the reward is just doing a good thing. Don't you like good feelings? Doesn't it feel good to do good things for other people? Why you got to get something out of it? I mean, I'm about to choke myself from laughing. I never met a single, anyway, we don't trust at all. I don't say at all, that's kind of extreme. Many of us don't trust. We don't trust God. We don't trust the government. We don't trust each other. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust anything. Many of us. And many of us, untrusting people, also claim to be following some kind of religion. But we all want an outcome, a certain outcome for doing certain deeds. And if that outcome was taken away, I mean, maybe people will still do it. I don't know. I do know that when people have heard of things like the idea of universal salvation, and somebody will say, well, no matter what you do, you're still going to go to heaven, right? People will be like, well, if everybody goes to heaven, why am I being good? And that's like a weird thing to say, but people say it. Why? Because the other thing about getting a reward or getting something is the thought that somebody else isn't going to get that something, which then makes you special and makes you feel good. None of that is an act of faith in my mind, because you believe that you're going to get this outcome. I think like more faith or trust is to just do the thing because it feels like the right thing to do, and not be concerned about the future outcome for yourself or for anybody else, and just trust the process. So anyway, I don't know why I said that long introduction to this poem, but now I'm going to get into the poem that is relatively short compared to this long introduction. Trusting the process. I pour myself into you, trusting you will never spill me, never fearing emptiness because I know you're here to fill me. The terror known by many folks who can't contemplate your promise is dissolved the moment I witness you, so I give it all to keep me honest. I don't want to pretend to trust in you, only when for me it is convenient. Then as soon as I don't get what I want, realize I don't mean it. To me, trusting you is its own reward. In fact, it's my only treasure. Because anything that does not have you there will never stay together. From the beginning into the end, from the first into the last, without you, nothing that seems to matter ever truly has. Nations continue to come and go. Things that were enter non-existence, while people pretend to get it all through selfish one-sided resistance. A horrible error in calculation. No one can hold their breath forever. Whether you last exhaled or last inhaled, the project of breathing is both together. And that's what this world's forgetting. Perhaps some of us never knew it. Oneness isn't the strongest wins, it's polarities congruent. I'll publish the words to this in the video description if you didn't follow it. But it's basically a poem describing both trust in the Creator, if you believe in that sort of thing, and also it's juxtaposing it to, or comparing it to, the process of breathing. Because people say all the time, I don't know if this is going to be my last breath. And a breath is cyclical. It's inhale and exhale. It's both polarities. And I use that as an analogy a lot when I'm speaking. And when you breathe out, or whether you breathe in that pendulum swing of inhale, exhale, you could shut off at any moment, and you don't really know. So when you focus on your breath, if you're mindful that the reality is you don't know how many breaths you have left, you actually are operating from a place of trust. You're trusting, if I let that air out, some air is coming back in. And it's the same when you give yourself over to the way of the Spirit. In fact, in the spiritual text that I follow, the Bible, the word for spirit and the word for breath are the same, pneuma. So there's a metaphor, but it's actually our actual experience. And I think that's why a lot of traditions do get people to focus and center on the breath, because it's metaphorical and it's actual, and it's a reminder that we have to give everything we have, which without your breath, that's the end of you and the end of everything. You got to give it, trusting it's going to come back. It's just like, that's the flow of it all. And when you trust that, you're present, you're living fully into, everything that's around you. And fact is, a lot of us aren't doing that. A lot of us are fundamentally holding our breath. We're so afraid of loss. And even though, here's the facts, cold hard, you are going to lose every freaking thing in your life. It is all gone. It's gone. You're going to lose it. It's never coming back. You're never going to see it again. It's over. But that's not a terrible thing. Because if you're present with it, then you have it now. And that's all you ever had. That's all you ever going to have. And in my different iterations as Pedro, trying to figure out how to communicate this to people, it has astounded me that after all the years that humans have been born and died, that this seems to still be new information. I don't understand it. And until we face it and we stop living in the denial of this reality of what it means to be human, to be human is to know that you're going to die, even while you're living. But to live also in such a way as if you're going to live forever, but without having any guarantees. And I don't say this to disparage anybody, but having lived my life in church, having been a pastor, I would be disingenuous if I didn't say that I believe that the church, and maybe many other religions, but I haven't practiced those. I studied them, but I haven't practiced them, so I don't really know, have done humanity a disservice by allowing us to be in denial of this reality of death, and to project a future of our own that's a selfish future. Because the fact is, if you are trying to get something, a reward, you're going to get corrupted. You're just going to get corrupted. And Jesus addressed that to his disciples one time. He was like, slaves don't get paid. That's basically what he said. If you surrender yourself to the way, you just do what the way calls you to do without thinking about what you're going to get. Because that's just the harmony and the flow of the universe, the balancing and the harmony of the polarities. And everybody does it, but we're so unconscious. Every time you breathe in and breathe out, you are being a part of the natural flow. And everything is supposed to move that way. But what we do is we take in and then we try to hold on for dear life, like we underwater, holding our breath. And we're afraid that if we open our mouth to breathe, we're going to drown. Oh, people, I don't even know what to say to you. I love y'all. This is my failed attempt to contribute to the flow and to encourage you to let crap go. Haha, see that rhyme? Because we got to start trusting, but we got to trust just because. We got to just start trusting each other. We got to start trusting God. We got to start doing what's right and what's good, because that's how we would want to be treated, and not because of a reward. I'm not trying to be funny, but I personally would find it quite hilarious if Jesus eventually comes back, which, let's be honest, he's very much taking his sweet time. But I would love it if Jesus came back and said, y'all got punked, and started cracking up laughing and was like, the reward is just loving. You're not getting jack after this. Not because I wouldn't like to keep going after this and have an eternal reward, but because it's really messing people up. Have you ever met a person that was doing something to try to get some outcome that did it from a genuine place? I'll be honest, I don't even think about going to heaven, which probably makes some people think I'm not a Christian. But I don't, because if loving my neighbors, myself, and trying to do best, if the natural result of that is going to heaven, I don't need to think about it, because that's what I try to do anyway. I don't need, just like it said, like love, you don't need love fulfills the law. You don't need a law to tell you don't do this and don't do that. If you love people, you just aren't going to do those things. That's just basically how it is. I stopped thinking about heaven when I was about 7. I didn't mean to rhyme that time. But I don't know. This feels almost complete. It's a random rant emerging from my desire to communicate to folks that unless we learn to trust one another, all we're going to see is enemies everywhere, fear everywhere, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And, you know, we're failing horribly. It's so bad that it's funny. Like, it's so comical to me that I watched the atheist comic roasting Christians, and I was cracking up laughing because he was right, and he knew the Bible, which made it worse. He knew the Bible more than most Christians. Whew, Jesus. That's where we are. Isn't it hilarious? Come on now. Anyway, let's see if this video makes it out to the world. I love everybody. Everybody. Not because I'm supposed to, not because I'm getting something out of it, because I know how hard it is to be human, man. I know how hard this game is not easy. And then if you try to do it in that way where you're trying to love everybody, that makes it double, triple, quadruple less easy. And it's already not easy when you're just looking out for yourself. So I know it's hard out there, y'all. I know your parents probably gave you bad advice about everything in life, and you're trying to stay faithful to their ignorance because you think if you get smarter or learn anything new, you're betraying them. But you're just betraying yourself. Anyway, bye.